Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Last night, the College Football Playoff Committee released their second set of rankings, and there were definitely some big changes after a wild Week 10 of college football. So we're going to be here to break it down for you, share our analysis, see if we agree or disagree with the committee's selections. And I also want to hear from you guys down in the comments. Do you agree with these rankings or not? Like I said, there were some huge shakeups, and there are definitely going to be some big shakeups this week as we have 7 more ranked versus ranked matchups. So we're going to break them down, share what's going to happen later on this week in college football, and break down these rankings. So as we all expected, the top 4 did not change. Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson remain the same after they all won this past week. Clemson and Georgia would be facing if the playoffs were to happen today, and Notre Dame and Alabama would be facing. So like I said, nothing has changed from last week. A couple shakeups below them. Oklahoma remained at number 5. Ohio State was number 6, but after their huge defeat to Iowa, who beat them by 31 points, they dropped all the way to 13th. Iowa is now 20th, where they deserve to be. They were unranked before this game. They definitely deserve to be at number 20. That's a very respectable spot after a huge win at home against the Buckeyes. So Iowa should be very happy with that spot, and they're in the running for a very good bowl game. They have a huge game now against Wisconsin this week on the road. This is the game Wisconsin's been wanting. They haven't had a major opponent on their record all season. People are saying they might not even get in if they go undefeated, but now they've got a ranked opponent on their schedule against Iowa. If they can win that, win against Michigan, and then win the Big Ten championship game, I don't see any way how the committee could leave out Wisconsin, who would be undefeated and their conference champion, even though their schedule has been fairly weak. But that Iowa game is going to be huge for them, and that'll probably be their first big test of the season. So we got Oklahoma at 5, TCU at 6, who moved up a little bit from 8th. I thought Miami maybe should have been a little bit ahead of TCU just because of the way they defeated Virginia Tech. They defeated Virginia Tech, I believe, 28-10. And, TCU defeated Texas, who wasn't that great of an opponent. So I thought maybe Miami should have jumped them just because of the dominance they showed. But that's not a huge deal. Wouldn't affect the top 4 any. TCU's got their chance to prove themselves. Not that they already haven't, but they've got another huge game this week as they go on the road to face Oklahoma. I personally like Oklahoma in that game. I think Baker Mayfield will be the game changer, but we all know TCU has a very dominant defense, as we saw against Texas. And if they're able to shut down Baker Mayfield, who threw for 598 yards against Oklahoma State, they might be able to go on the road and pull up the upset, stay in the running for the Big 12 championship as well as the college football playoff. So that's going to be something to really keep your eye out for. Auburn is the highest 2-loss team that is ranked, as they were last week. They went on the road and defeated Texas A&M. Washington is the highest Pac-12 team that is ranked. We have Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, 3 straight Big Ten East teams. Michigan State is a team that a lot of people thought were dead earlier on the season, but they have defeated Michigan, and they have defeated Penn State, and this week they have Ohio State on the road. If they are to win that game, and assumingly they would win out after that, they would probably have a date with Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. And if for some reason they win that, could you make a case for putting Michigan State, a 2-loss Big Ten team, in the top 4? And that's something we're going to have to keep our eye out for. It all starts this weekend as they face Ohio State on the road. But a lot of people are making a case for the Spartans to make the top 4, and I would make that case too. I mean, that's 3 huge wins against very good teams. And with the Big Ten championship under their belt against a more than likely undefeated Wisconsin, you can make a case for a Michigan State team that was 24th last week to make the top 4, which would be a crazy, crazy story. But Mark D'Antonio always does a heck of a job there. So we've got Oklahoma, TCU this week. We're going to have 3 teams that are going to be guaranteed to lose in the top 10. Georgia goes on the road and faces Auburn. TCU, of course, goes on the road and plays Oklahoma, and Notre Dame goes on the road and faces Miami. So 3 top 10 teams are guaranteed to lose, which will, of course, send the playoff committee into chaos next week. We're going to have huge shakeups. Once again, next week, we have 7 ranked versus ranked matchups, as I said earlier. 3 of those are in the top 10, so the top 10 is going to change drastically. And another point I'd like to make, the top 3 teams in the country, Georgia, Alabama, and Notre Dame, all have a chance to lose this weekend. Now, I said chance. I did not say that they will lose. But Georgia has to go to Auburn. Alabama has to go to Mississippi State, who is 16th in the country. And Notre Dame has to go to Miami. All of those games are extremely tough. Mississippi State's performance over UMass last week was not necessarily dominant. They're still a very good team. It's a very tough place to play with those cowbells. Nick Fitzgerald's a very good quarterback, so I could see that game being fairly close. I believe Alabama's only a 14-point favorite right now. So the top 3 teams in the country could all lose. Not saying they will. I think the teams that have the best chance to lose are Notre Dame and Georgia, as they have the toughest matchups at Miami and at Auburn, respectively. So that's something to keep your eye on. If one or two of those teams lose, and if shockingly all three of them lose, that's going to send the whole college football playoff world into a frenzy. So that would be something to really keep your eye on, something really exciting to look forward to this weekend, see if we can have a little bit of chaos in there. And another thing I'd like to point out is UCF and Memphis. Remember, the top-ranked Power 5 or Group of 5 team at the end of the season will make a New Year's Six bowl. Right now, that honor would go to Central Florida. They still have a game against South Florida, though, to end the season. Remember, they were the team that everybody thought would maybe go undefeated and make the New Year's Six bowl, undoubtedly. But right now, Central Florida is. Memphis is at the head of their division in the American Athletic Conference. And if both these teams win out, which I think they could and should, they will meet in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, and the winner of that will go to a New Year's Six bowl. So that game will decide who goes to the New Year's Six bowl. And that's going to be a really exciting thing to happen if they both win out to that point. So that's something to keep your eye on. The margin between those two teams, there's only 3 teams in between them, so Memphis is definitely closing that gap. Both have a very explosive offense, so I'm really excited to watch that game, assuming it does happen, with a lot on the line for those schools. That's a very big deal for those Group of 5 schools to get to that point. We've got USC and Washington. They're the leaders of their divisions in the Pac-12, but they're both going to need a lot of help if they want to make the college football playoff. I think the best bet right now would be Washington. I think if they meet in the Pac-12 championship game, like I predicted back in the summer, I think Washington would win that game, but they're going to have to get a lot of help because they have that one bad loss to Arizona State, and I think that's going to end up hurting them in the long run, even if they win their conference championship game. Northwestern, I have them up there. They slipped into the rankings. I had them on my teams trending up, and respectively, and of course they moved into that number 25 spot, and they should have. They're definitely on a roll and have the potential to end the season with a 9-3 record. So things are really looking good there. Overall, though, I do agree with the committee's picks. Like I said, there were a couple teams here and there that I thought maybe shouldn't be there. Maybe they should have swapped spaces or something like that. But overall, they once again emphasized the head-to-head and a little more emphasis on strength of schedule. The committee chair went ahead and said that there was a small margin between Georgia and Alabama, but they're weighing Georgia's win over Notre Dame more heavily than any of Alabama's wins, and that's why Georgia still has the top spot right now, and I've got to agree with that. Alabama's best win, I mean, what would it be? LSU maybe? I mean, that Florida State win at the beginning of the season, obviously it's not looking as good right now after all the turmoil they've been in with the DeAndre Francois injury, now sitting at 3-5. So Georgia still owns the top spot. Wisconsin's going to have to get in there, and I think they should get in if they finish the season undefeated. There's talk saying that even if they go undefeated and win the Big Ten championship game, their schedule's been so weak that they might not be able to make the college football playoff. And I think that would be ridiculous to say a Power 5 team that's gone undefeated and won their conference would not make the top 4. I think there should be no discussion about that if Wisconsin wins out, including a win in the Big Ten championship game over Michigan State or Ohio State, because I think Penn State's out of it. So that's something to keep your eye on. Wisconsin fans should hope they don't get knocked out of that if they go undefeated, and I just don't see that happening one bit, because some of these teams will lose along the way, the 7 teams that are ahead of them. So that's something to keep your eye on for sure. Overall, though, I agree with it. I agree with these rankings. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how things work out. Another thing that I would like to point out is the 3 Power 5 conferences that would be left out if these top 4 stayed the same. Because if Georgia and Alabama are both undefeated at the end of the season, one of them will lose in the SEC championship game. But as long as it's a close game, I can't see the committee knocking one of them out. So right now, that would leave the Big 12, the Big 10, and the Pac-12 all out of the college football playoff. And that's something to definitely keep your eye on. That would be shocking. I mean, it really would to leave 3 Power 5 conferences out. But that possibility is still there with the top 4. We only have a few weeks to go. Like I said, a couple of teams will lose. Georgia could lose to Auburn. Notre Dame could easily lose to Miami. Alabama still got a date against Auburn, but the possibility of leaving 3 Power 5 conferences is looking more and more real as we continue on throughout this season. So, but overall, top 25, very solid. Top 4 stays the same. Georgia still holds her top spot, but 3 top 10 teams will lose this week. 7 top 25 teams will lose overall, so it's going to be a heck of a day on Saturday as we get this College Football Week 11 going. So make sure you keep your eye on that. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about these rankings. So leave what your predictions for the playoff, leave what you think about the rankings, if you agree or disagree, or predictions about these big games that are coming up on Saturday. I'd love to hear from you guys and answer any questions you have. So thank you again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.